Should you watch Star Trek, the greatest series ever made, other than Firefly and Stargate, chronologically or in the order they were made? This is an age-old debate, and I'm going to clear it up right now. Welcome to the Tachyon Pulse podcast.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
First of all, I'm going to tell you what, just get my phone, chronologically means. So the order that you should watch these series, if you do it in the order they happened within the universe. Now this includes the J.J. Abrams movies, which I'm not sure it should. But we'll have that debate in a bit because that's actually related to the order you should watch these in, I think. So, order to watch it chronologically. Star Trek Enterprise, initially, starts in 2151. Star Trek, the original series, The Cage episode. Star Trek The Future Begins, or that's the Star Trek 2009 movie. 2258, Kelvin. Star Trek Into Darkness, 2259, Kelvin. Star Trek Strange New Worlds also started in 2259. Star Trek Beyond, 2263, Kelvin. Star Trek the original series started in 2265. Star Trek the animated series, 2269. Star Trek the motion picture, 2273. Star Trek Wrath of Khan, 2285. Star Trek The Search of Spock, 2285. Star Trek The Voyage Home, possibly my favourite, other than Undiscovered Country. Not sure. 2286, The Final Frontier, 2287, a film that's not as bad as a lot of people say. Undiscovered Country, 2293. Star Trek The Next Generation started in 2364. Star Trek Deep Space Nine, 2369, and there's some overlap there, obviously, with The Next Generation. Star Trek Generations, the first movie, 2371, and then Star Trek Voyager, 2371 as well. Star Trek First Contact, 2373. Insurrection, 2375. I hate that movie. I hate it. That's probably my least favourite Star Trek movie that went to cinema. Section 31 is obviously my least favourite. Star Trek Voyager, I've done that. Insurrection, done that. Nemesis, 2379. Lower Decks, 2380. Star Trek Prodigy, 2383, Picard, 2399, and then Star Trek Discovery Seasons 3 and 5. Now, that is the chronological order to currently watch Star Trek. Section 31 isn't in that, and I forget where it sits, but I think we should ignore that film with all our hearts. We should just, block it from our memories. I actually wish that, the Klingon mind meld, the Vulcan mind meld was a thing, and that we could just go, you don't remember Section 31, and I'll be like, Section 30 what? I think, though, there's a better order to watch this, and I would say it is the order it was made, and I've got a few reasons why. So, obviously, you start with Star Trek, the original series. It's the classic. It gives you a grounding in what Star Trek should be. You then move on to the Next Generation. Again, it just makes sense to go with what was made in order because that set up an awful lot of canon that then fed through the next few seasons. I could go Enterprise, but there is a reason why not, and I'll come to that in a sec. You then go with Deep Space Nine. You could overlap the last couple of seasons of TNG with Deep Space Nine, but I wouldn't. I don't think there's anything massively that from Deep Space Nine that influences anything in TNG. It's going to mention the Cardassian conflict a little bit, but to be honest, the TNG episodes just inform the Deep Space Nine episodes. They add to it. So I wouldn't wait. I would finish TNG and then I would start Deep Space Nine, which obviously has a massive story arc to itself. And there is a couple of episodes in Deep Space Nine that you will not understand unless you've watched the original series already and TNG already. I'd then go into Voyager, simply because there is an awful lot of things like the Borg and what have you, and again, it just makes sense. Now I would watch Enterprise at this point, because there is stuff within Enterprise that I think is a good argument for why Star Trek then changes. The time Cold War gives you lots of opportunities to maybe go, okay, well, what happened later makes sense because time was changed within Enterprise. Also, though, and I'm going to jump back to the movies. When I watched TNG, I would then watch the TNG movies. When I watched the original series, I would watch the movies immediately. As soon as that finished, watch the movies. A reason why I would watch the TNG movies before I watched Deep Space Nine and Enterprise in particular is there is at least one episode within Enterprise that you will only understand, two actually, because of the finale as well, that you will only understand if you've watched TNG. You won't know who the characters are in the series finale, and you will not understand the series regeneration at all if you haven't already watched TNG and the movies. So technically you should watch Enterprise before you watch TNG if you're doing this chronologically. But there is a lot of storylines in there that you simply won't understand if you haven't seen what was produced before. Then I would go on and watch Discovery if you really have to. I'm going to have to watch it again at some point because I've been told it's not as bad as I think. I would say the first season is as bad as I think. And you do get to see an awful lot of differences within Star Trek from that point. Now, I'm going to throw in the Abrams movies at this point. You could watch them between Enterprise and Disco. And if you do, there is certain things like maybe the Klingons and stuff that you would go, that's because of Abrams. You could also argue at that point from everything onwards, and I probably would make this argument, that everything did change because of Enterprise and then the Abrams movies, and maybe these Star Trek series, not Lower Decks, but Disco and Strange New Worlds, actually exist in a slightly different universe. Possibly because of Enterprise, or possibly because of the events of the Abrams series. So, watch Enterprise, watch Abrams, watch Disco if you really have to. You could just watch the Abrams movies and pretend they're not Star Trek, which is what I do, and just enjoy them as, like cool sci-fi action movies. That's how I think about them. I would want to watch Strange New Worlds. Now, you could watch that again between seasons of Disco if you really have to. But season 2 of Disco leads into season 2, the first season of Strange New Worlds. I don't see that there's any real reason to mix them, and I think you could just watch them. Watch Disco, watch Strange New Worlds. I would then watch Lower Decks. You'll understand everything about Lower Decks because you've watched TNG. I would actually argue that you could watch TNG and then watch Lower Decks, because if your memory's not great, there's lots of jokes in Lower Decks that you wouldn't really understand unless you've watched TNG and you remember it. I'm going to make the same argument for Prodigy. You can either watch it when it was produced, or you could watch it immediately after Voyager. Now, again, this has nothing to do with chronology or anything. It's simply because an awful lot of what happens in Prodigy is related to Voyager, the characters, etc. Now, you'd have watched it already if you did it this order, but you might not remember all the elements of it. I don't think it's quite as on the nose as Lower Decks, but there are elements to it. So, you could watch Deep Space, you could watch Voyager and then immediately watch Prodigy, and that some of it would at least make a little bit more sense to you if you've not got a poor memory. I would argue then you must have watched the Abrams movies before you watch Picard. This is because there are events within the Abrams movies that bleed into at least very much the first season of Picard, and that you need to know about those events to watch Picard, the first season. That is where I would end, because the third season of Picard is probably the best Star Trek we've had for quite a while. So, go out on a high. Yeah. Guys, how would you watch it if you were starting again? If you were watching Star Trek from the beginning, like our young Harris over on scitrek, and he's going to try to watch this chronologically, and I keep arguing with him that it's a stupid decision, but he won't listen, then which order would you watch? Is there any order you think? And what do you think about Lower Decks immediately after TNG, Prodigy immediately after Voyager? Is that the way to go? Or would you just watch this purely in the way they were made, and then throw in Abrams wherever you want? Or don't. I'd go the same with Discovery. Guys, get into the comments and tell me exactly what you think. Also, this sort of video, do you want to see a little bit more of it? Me just giving my opinion on these things? I don't always get, insider knowledge. When I do, I will tell you, but I want to try and do some more slightly fun, less stressful videos from time to time. I'm actually thinking about doing a video, and I'd love to know your opinion on this, about if I was, in the Picard era, and I was saying the Elon Musk of the era, and I wanted to get myself a Star Trek ship to wander around in, regardless of the Empire, that it was, Empire, Federation, Romulan, or whatever. Which starship would I take? Would you want to see that video? I've thought about it. I'm tempted to go with this bad boy, but what would you do? And yeah, should I do that video? Get into the comments and tell me exactly what you think. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out, and you'll never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can become a member of the channel, and then you get to see a lot of our videos up to 24 hours before everybody else sometimes. Go check that out. As always, please stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.